Okay, y'all, welcome back to another YouTube video, I suppose, because I'm going to do this as a YouTube video, because I was kind of thinking about this before I started recording, if I should do an Instagram video or a YouTube video, and I decided a YouTube video because I don't know exactly, well, I know what I'm going to talk about, I just don't know, how far I'm going to, talk about it. I try to keep my Instagram videos, under a certain time limit. But anyways, I'm here to talk about the Maul Shadow Lord trailer that they just dropped. What I think what maybe about 30, no, probably an hour ago at this point. But anyways, I watched it as soon as it dropped, and I'm beyond excited, dude. Maul is literally my top five favorite Sith Lords in all of Star Wars. I love Maul. I just it's literally amazing how Maul went from being just this random character in Episode One with only two lines, and then just spiraling out into this well beloved character and such a complex backstory and history and everything. Um, but yeah, so let's go ahead and get into it. So first, I want to talk about the animation. The animation is beautiful, dude. Like literally under the comment section of the video I was watching from from the account I was watching it on, someone was like, "It's amazing how far the animation from Clone Wars season one has come until now. Like it's beautiful. There's a shot in the trailer of like an ISD in the air, and it just looks absolutely beautiful. And then the shot of Maul where he's sitting there, or like it's like a full shot of him, and like you see him from like his chest and up. It just looks amazing, dude. The animation is just absolutely beautiful. It almost like it gets better like every time we see it. Um, so yeah, animation beautiful. Cannot wait. Second off, I want to talk about release date. I think it's coming out. When is it coming out? What I think April 6th is when it's coming out. I low key cannot wait until April 6th. I don't think I can. That's only I think about 3 months away. But man, I cannot wait to get back into having like a month or like a weekly episode watch for a Star Wars show or project. I just cannot wait. So I want to talk about the trailer. So in the trailer, it shows us that of course Maul's being hunted, and Maul's being hunted by a couple different people. He's being hunted by the Empire, of course. So that's like the Inquisitorius and all of that, because the Emperor knows he's alive. We get that confirmation in the trailer when I think it's the first brother. I can't remember what Inquisitor number they confirmed he was. But it's the Inquisitor from Tales of the Jedi, the one that Ahsoka kills. He says, the Emperor wants you dead, right? The Emperor, of course, knows he's alive. So it's the Empire, the Inquisitorius. We also see Marok from Ahsoka. And then it's some type of like police, like military agency. It kind of looked like maybe it was the Coruscant police force or some other planet force. I'm not sure. And then third is definitely some type of like crime syndicate or something. Because we do see the Pikes and Maul. I don't actually shit can't remember. Does Maul affiliate with the Pikes in a way? I don't know, but it definitely will be some crime stuff going on, of course, because this is building off the fact that Maul has built his own underground, crime syndicate and all that. So that's what the main focus of the trailer is, showing us stuff like that. We do also get a look at two Force users that would be in the show. It seems like some older, maybe that they were a Jedi, or I'm not really sure. And then, of course, a confirmed Jedi with the usage of her lightsaber. And she even knows who Maul is, because Maul comes in and she's in like a cell, and she's like, Maul. You know what I mean? So I wonder how she knows him. We do, of course, see she is a Twi'lek, a female Twi'lek. And then we also, I'm not sure what the species of the other Force user is, but I think eventually we may learn. I don't know, maybe I'll have to dig into some source material. But yeah, and then let's see what else. Oh, we do know from the trailer, from what we see in the beginning, when we see an Imperial ship land and the hatch opens up and a couple of TK troopers walk out. So we do know that kind of gives us a little bit of a time placement of where exactly this show is going to take place, at least that episode. But I say that episode like loosely because I assume that hold on, gotta sneeze. Or maybe I don't. Never mind. Anyways, I assume this will be around the Bad Batch, because that's when we first saw the TK troopers, and we may see some type of jump to stormtroopers, since we do see an ISD, but that is a big maybe, because in the season finale for Bad Batch, what was it, we got 3 seasons, right? I think at the most recent season, the season finale for Bad Batch, when or I don't think he's Grand Moff at that point, but when Tarkin arrives to to the planet Wayland on Mount Tantus. We see an above shot of of some Imperial ships above the planet. We see two Venators, and of course we see an ISD, which is Tarkans. Them slowly integrating the new age ships and destroyers into the Imperial Navy and fleet. So the TK Troopers confirms that sometime around that time, of course, is early on in the stages of the Empire, and also we also know that too because there are Inquisitors in the show, and of course Inquisitors were pretty early on. They lasted up until like maybe just like a couple of years before we get to like New Hope, because by the time New Hope comes around, pretty much all the Inquisitors are dead or so off, because we have no idea what happened to Reva at the end of the Kenobi show. So there's that. But it kind of gives us a little time placement and all of that. So there's that. So now that I kind of talked about the time placement and stuff like that, and kind of what it seems like the trailer is showing us, because I'm not gonna go like an in-depth trailer. I just kind of want to give like what the trailer shows and what we're kind of gonna get. I also did read somewhere that the trailer or that the show is gonna talk about how Maul feels about the destruction of the Jedi, because they're like his long-lasting enemy. Well, at least they were in a way, because of the way he was raised, because he was the apprentice of Palpatine, a Sith. So he was raised to hate the Jedi and all sorts. So but the biggest thing I want to talk about is the stuff that's going on with Maul and like his crime syndicate and where this might lead to and what it might explain and entail. Okay, so there's all that. So I first want to start off with what we know already for what Maul has already created and founded, and what eventually this is going to lead to once we get further in the timeline, and kind of how it may all wrap up and end. Okay, so we know that in I'm trying to think. I'm trying to remember which one came out first. Yeah, Solo came out first. Yeah. Okay. So we know in Solo that I think Solo came out first. I don't want to. Don't quote me on this. Don't quote me on this. But I think Solo came out first. Then it was Clone Wars season. I'm drawing a blank on what the last season was, but the last season of the Clone Wars that ended everything. So here we'll do it like this. We know Solo. We know from Solo, and we know from the latest season of the Clone Wars that Maul has a crime, that he built his own like crime syndicate, like he built up his own crime organization and all that. Okay, so in Solo, of course, we see him. He gets contacted by Kira at the end when she kills Dryden Vosk, or Dryden Vosk is dead, right? And then Han goes off, eventually to do whatever he's doing, right? Obviously, and she shuts the blind. She takes her ring, where she works for Crimson Dawn, which of course Dryden Vosk is up there as one of the high like lieutenants, if you will so say, for the Crimson Dawn. My bad. I'd also say the crime syndicate, but Crimson Dawn. But of course, Maul is the one controlling Crimson Dawn. Actually, yes, Solo does come first, because I'm thinking about the scene that we see in the Clone Wars. Okay, yeah, so we know in Solo first that he has his own crime syndicate, that he's still alive. But we also know that he is still alive because of Rebels previously, before that. Okay, but at that time when we saw him on Malachor 5, he was like a hermit, and he was just living there, and he was kind of abandoned, which I think is what we're going to see come the end finale for the Maul Shadow Lord show. But I'm gonna get to that a little bit later. Okay, so like I was saying, we see she contacts him. He's like, yes. She's like, the shipment got away and all of that. Dryden Voss is dead. He's like, is that so? He's like, where's the shipment now? And she's like, it's gone. And then he gets up and, of course, pulls the hood down, and it plays the Duel of the Fates in the background, slowly and eerie. And he's like, one man couldn't have done this alone, And then he tells her, right before he leaves, right before she leaves, he ignites his saber. He's like, come to me on Dathomir, you and I are going to work a lot more closely, from now on. And of course they do, because we see, if you've read, I think it's either War of the Bounty Hunters, or I think it's War of the Bounty Hunters, or it's a Crimson Dawn comic, from, I think, 2024 to 2025, I think. We see that Kira was actually trained by Darth Maul in the art of like combat, like especially lightsaber combat. Of course, Kira doesn't use lightsabers; she uses like some type of like blades. But she ends up fighting Vader. It's the coolest thing ever, and she even like talks to Vader about what Maul told her, and his whole plan. Because his whole plan was to bring down the Empire and the Emperor himself. He has no love Like, yes, he has no love for the Emperor or the Empire, right? Because of what the Emperor did to him, right? And we see all that, of course, during the Clone Wars and all that stuff, right? So we know him and Kira do work. They did work pretty closely. She was almost like an apprentice in a source, but not an apprentice, of course, because she wasn't trained as a Sith Lord or to become a Sith. So there's that. And then so yeah, speaking like I said, what we know from Solo, then also what we know from the last season of the Clone Wars, that Maul right before everything was gonna pop off, right before like Order 66, and of course the formation of the Empire, Maul sent all of the crime lords into hiding. We see it right when they're on Mandalore and they're like in the underground tunnels, and I forget her name, the Mandalorian girl who's theorized to be the armor from the Mandalorian show. She comes to meet Maul, and we see that he's on a holographic like FaceTime call with like a couple different like crime lords, and one of them is Dryden Voss, of course, the head of Crimson Dawn. I keep wanting to say Crime Syndicate, as if like that's the name of that crime syndicate. It's weird. Anyways, so we know he built up this huge criminal empire, right? And we're gonna see, of course, more of it, and maybe more of a bigger buildup in Maul Shadow Lord, right? He still has his Mandalorians, right? And we still obviously he's gonna have some type of connections for something. Which, now that I think about it, is probably where that military police force that we see in the show. That's probably where they come in, because you got Maul, because you got two sides. You got the Sith Lord Maul, of course, but he kind of renounces the Sith at some point, and you got the Crime Lord Maul. The Sith Maul, of course, is who's being hunted by the Empire. The Inquisitors, stuff like that. Of course, with the first brother, which is what I'm going to refer to him as, because that was originally what he came out as, was the first brother, but I think it changed. Anyways, the first brother, tells him in the trailer too, the Emperor wants you dead, right? They want to kill Maul because they want to eliminate any loose ends from any past things. Plus, there can't be multiple dark side Sith users running around. Dark side users is a different thing, but at this point, Maul is still, teetering on the edge of like Sith Lord, not Sith Lord. So Palpatine just he wants to eliminate any loose ends, any what's the word I'm looking for? Any supposed things that can threaten his empire and his, of course, his power structure. So there's that. And then, of course, the second one you got is Crime Lord Maul, which I think is where the military force comes in. We see in the trailer hunting him because, he's a crime lord, of course, and we see the pikes and all of that. So that's all talked about, and kind of how Maul has all that going on and what we're kind of going to see. I want to talk about what we might see when it comes to the end of the show and leading on to when we see him on Malachor 5 in Rebels when Ezra finds him. Now, first, I'm not entirely sure. I think this is going to be like a one-off thing. Like, it's only be like one season in like 8 episodes, however many or whatever. I don't think we're getting a season 2. Most likely. I don't see a need for it, but who knows? But yeah, obviously Maul's syndicate, it falls apart, right? How exactly that falls apart, I don't exactly know. I think that, I don't know. I've kind of thought about it here and there, but I can't really think of like something to like kind of lay down as like almost like a theory, because we know Maul goes from what he was doing in the Clone Wars to the finale of the Clone Wars, then to whatever he's doing with Crimson Dawn with Kira, and we see in the post credits scene for Solo, and then of course that big jump to when we see him on Malachor 5, kind of just stranded there as some type of hermit, and of course he's still being hunted by the Inquisitors because of course the eighth brother refers to him as the Shadow, right? So I think that we're definitely going to see the undoing of everything because, not only his crime syndicate, but his Mandalorians, like what happens to them, who knows, right? But that's also kind of what that theory of, I forget her name. I'd have to look up her name after this video is uploaded, of the female Mandalorian who serves under Maul, that there's a theory that she becomes the armor from the Mandalorian show. And the biggest um, the biggest evidence people have for that theory is the horns on her helmet, and that she kept them as like, I don't know, like some type of like significance like to her past or whatever. But I am excited to see how he gets to Malachor 5 and anything like that. Now, I definitely want to kind of think and brainstorm and see if I can think of, any ideas of or any theories of how he does end up on Malachor 5 and like what leads to the fall of his empire. You know what I'm saying? And I honestly think it's going to be such a beautiful thing when we get this, because, we got Maul when he first started off. He was found on Dathomir. They took him. You know, right? He was given was given to Palpatine, trained as an apprentice, a Sith assassin, whatever. We get him in episode 1. He goes out, does whatever, does whatever. You know, he goes, kills Qui-Gon, you know, forms that rival hatred for Kenobi when he cuts him in half, falls into that trash chute, ends up on that trash planet. Savage finds him. He does all the stuff he does during the Clone Wars. Palpatine finds them both, kills Savage, even more of a deep hatred for Palpatine after he already betrayed him, you know, in the Sith in general, in the Sith ideal, which is why he renounces the Sith in that episode when Ezra finds him on Malachor 5, when he asks him if he was a Jedi, but he's like, no, but I once was a Force wielder. He's like, so you're a Sith? And he was like, that's when he gets all kind of like tense, like, you know, like the Sith, they took everything from me. You know what I'm saying? Ripped me from my mother's arms, used me as a weapon, murdered my brother, stuff like that, right? And of course, we get all that, and we get whatever he's doing with his crime syndicate, you know, in the original trilogy in that time span, and then we get him on Malachor 5. He escapes, of course, finds Kenobi, and we get that beautiful ending to his story. So I just cannot wait to see all of that accumulate into one, you know, massive thing. I love Maul. He's not only one of my favorite. He's not only one of my favorite Sith Lords, but also one of my favorite Star Wars characters, because it's just insane how he went from just a kind of like one-off character to, you know, this big thing. But yeah, man, I'm very excited for the show. Cannot wait. And yeah, I just want to make a quick little video about it. And I'm glad I did, because this video is about like 16 minutes long, so I definitely couldn't do that on Instagram. So yeah, see you.